In the quiet of a cold evening, James, hungry and broken, gave his last meal to a stray dog, an act of kindness born from desperation. What happened next defied all logic. As the days passed, the dog, a silent witness to his struggles, returned, the favor in a way that would change James's life forever. But the truth of their bond was something truly unreal. James sat alone at the edge of the sidewalk, his body slumped in exhaustion. The last few days had been hard. Bills were overdue, and the weight of responsibility for his young daughter Sophie had grown heavier with each passing day. He hadn't eaten much lately, saving what little food he had left for her, but today there was nothing. No food, no hope. As he looked out across the busy street, his stomach growled, an empty reminder of the desperation he had been feeling for weeks. The last of his money had been spent on rent, and now he didn't know where the next meal would come from. He couldn't afford to buy food for himself, let alone Sophie. A movement caught his eye. A stray dog, ragged and thin, limped across the street. It had patches of fur missing and a look of desperation in its eyes that mirrored his own. The dog sniffed the air, clearly searching for something, anything to eat. James hesitated for a moment, then sighed, reaching into his backpack. He pulled out the small sandwich he'd managed to make earlier in the morning, the only food he had. It wasn't much, just a few slices of bread and some wilted lettuce, but it was all he had left. He glanced at the dog again, its brown eyes, staring at him, waiting. With a heavy heart, James broke the sandwich in half and tossed it toward the dog. The dog hesitated for a moment, then devoured the food hungrily, as if it hadn't eaten in days. James smiled weakly, feeling a sense of relief that at least someone could eat today. But little did he know, the dog wasn't just hungry. It was about to change everything. The day after James had given the stray dog his last meal, he found himself unable to get the dog out of his mind. He walked through the park, his head down, deep in thought, when he heard the familiar sound of paws padding against the ground behind him. Turning around, he saw the same dog, dirty, ragged, and thin, following him. James blinked in surprise. The dog's tail wagged weakly as it approached, eyes filled with an emotion he couldn't quite place. "Hey there," James muttered, squatting down. He was too tired to be afraid. "You followed me?" The dog gave a low whine, as if in response, and sat down at his feet, staring up at him. For a moment, it was as though they shared a silent understanding. A bond formed out of pure need, of mutual hunger and loneliness. James chuckled softly despite his situation. "I don't have much left, you know. But you're welcome to hang around." The dog tilted its head as if understanding and stayed by James's side. It was a strange comfort having the dog nearby. It wasn't the same as a human presence, but it was something. Something real. Something to hold on to in the middle of his world crumbling around him. For the next few days, the dog continued to follow James everywhere, always keeping a quiet distance but never straying far. He never expected the dog to become so attached to him or for him to begin forming an attachment back. One evening, as the sun began to dip behind the horizon, James sat on a park bench, the cool breeze biting at his skin. His stomach growled, in protest, reminding him once again that he hadn't eaten all day. Sophie was at a friend's house, so at least she wasn't hungry, but that didn't ease the gnawing emptiness inside him. He pulled his coat tighter around his body and stared at the distant streetlights, the world around him feeling cold and unforgiving. That's when he heard a sound, a soft whine, followed by a series of gentle paw steps. The dog. The stray dog was back, but this time it wasn't just following him. In its mouth was a crumpled plastic bag. The dog dropped it in front of James and sat down, its eyes staring up at him expectantly. James furrowed his brow, confused. He slowly opened the bag, revealing a half-eaten sandwich wrapped in paper. It wasn't much, but it was food. He stared at the dog in disbelief. "You found this for me?" James whispered, his voice catching in his throat. The dog wagged its tail and gave another whine as if offering him everything it had. James's heart ached. This wasn't just a dog trying to survive anymore. This was a creature, an unlikely friend, who had returned the kindness he had shown. He took the sandwich, unwrapped it, and tore off a small piece. "I don't know how you did it, but thank you." He ate the small portion, then gave the rest to the dog. It devoured the food quickly, clearly grateful. James stood up and patted the dog's head. "You're a good boy." Over the weeks that followed, the bond between James and the stray dog grew stronger. James shared everything he could, even when it was little, and the dog, in turn, never left his side. It became more than just a pet. It became his companion, his confidant in a world that had turned cold and unkind. But it wasn't just the dog's presence that kept James going. It was the unexpected hope that had blossomed between them, the possibility that, even in the worst of times, kindness and love could still exist. The dog was a reminder that he wasn't truly alone. One evening, James found a small flyer at the local store that caught his eye. A local food bank was offering free meals for those in need. His heart leapt in his chest. Maybe things could get better. Maybe he could get back on his feet. He knelt beside the dog, who was lying on the ground, with its head resting on its paws. "We're going to get through this, buddy. I know we will." But as he reached down to stroke the dog's fur, something unexpected happened. The dog stood up and began to limp away, moving with purpose. "Where are you going?" James called. "Out." The dog didn't turn back, but instead trotted toward the street, pausing for a moment at the curb. It looked back at James one last time, as if to say goodbye, before it disappeared into the night. James didn't sleep that night. He wandered the streets, searching for the dog, calling its name, but it was gone. He couldn't understand why the dog had left. They had shared so much, and yet, in the end, it had walked away. Days passed, and James's situation didn't improve. He still didn't have enough to feed himself, let alone Sophie. He felt like the world had turned its back on him. And yet, every time he thought of the dog, a small flame of hope remained within him, something he couldn't shake. Then, one afternoon, something miraculous happened. He was walking to the food bank when he saw a figure ahead, a familiar, weathered face. It was the dog, but this time, it wasn't alone. A woman stood beside it, her smile gentle and warm. "I think this is yours," she said, pointing to the dog. "I found him wandering the streets a few days ago. Seems like he was looking for you." James's heart skipped a beat. The dog had returned. The woman explained that the dog had been abandoned by its owner long before it had found James. It had been living on the streets, surviving alone, until it found James, who had shared his last meal. The dog had never forgotten that kindness, and it had sought out the woman to help James. With tears in his eyes, James knelt down as the dog ran to him, licking his face in joyful recognition. "Thank you," James whispered. "Thank you for saving me." The woman smiled softly. "You saved him first." And in that moment, James realized, sometimes the most unlikely connections can save us. And sometimes the ones we help end up helping us in ways we never could have imagined. If this story touched your heart, make sure to hit that subscribe button and join the Emotive Animal Whisper family. We're here to share stories that remind us of the incredible bond between humans and animals, stories that speak to the heart. Don't miss out on more heartwarming journeys that'll leave you believing in the power of kindness. Subscribe now, and let's continue to connect with the animals who speak to our souls.